She washed her underwear in the water, then poured that same water into her dough, and the whole village kept coming back. The village of Mbankana always woke up before sunrise. The roosters were still crowing when thin smoke already started rising behind Mama Sifa's small clay brick house. Every morning it was the same scene. She brought out her big aluminum basin. She lit the fire with dry pieces of wood. She placed her old black pot filled with oil. And then the smell began, a sweet smell, warm, almost hypnotic. The children slowed down on their way to school. The men going to the field stopped just for one. Even the women who criticized her always found an excuse to buy too. Her donuts were not like the others. They were more golden, softer, more addictive. People used to joke, if you eat her donuts, you always come back. And it was true. If this story is already giving you chills, leave a like before continuing. Mama Sifa did not talk much. She served customers. She collected money. She watched. Her eyes followed every customer as if she was counting something, silently inside her mind. Nobody really knew where she came from. She had arrived in the village 15 years earlier, after the death of her husband, or so she said. She had no children, no visible family, only her house, her fire, and her donuts. At night, when everyone went home, she never stayed outside for long. She disappeared, and nobody really knew what she did after dark. But one thing was certain. The next day's donuts always had that strange taste, a taste nobody could explain. At first, nobody made the connection. It was the hot season. There were many mosquitoes. Children often got sick during that time of the year, but this time it was different. The first one was Junior, a 9-year-old boy. After school, as usual, he stopped by Mama Sifa's place. He bought 2 donuts with the coins his mother had given him for transportation. That same evening, he started complaining. "Mom, my stomach hurts." His mother thought it was just indigestion. But the pain continued all night. He was sweating. He was mumbling in his sleep. And early the next morning, he said something strange. "I dreamed about a woman looking at me. She was smiling, but her eyes were black." His mother shivered. 3 days later, a little girl from the neighborhood, Melissa, showed the same symptoms: sudden weakness, loss of appetite, nightmares. She also talked about a presence. She was near the fire. The adults started whispering, but nobody dared to accuse anyone. In a small village, rumors can spread faster than sickness. Meanwhile, every morning, Mama Sifa's stand was always full of customers. She kneaded her dough slowly. Her round arms moved carefully and methodically. Sometimes she lifted her head, and her eyes slowly scanned the crowd for a long time, as if she was searching for something or someone. One evening, Amina was coming back from the river when she noticed something strange. While everybody else was going home, Mama Sifa's house stayed lit later than usual. The light flickered behind the curtains, and a shadow moved past the window. A shadow alone, but it looked like it was talking. Amina stopped walking. A chill ran through her body. Something was wrong, but what? That night, the moon was almost full. The village was asleep. The only sounds were the crickets, and, far away, a dog barking for no reason. Amina could not sleep. Melissa's words kept repeating in her mind. She was near the fire around 10 o'clock at night. She heard the sound again. Splash, splash, like water being stirred. She slowly got up. Her mother was sleeping deeply. Her father was snoring. She walked outside barefoot. The air felt heavy. Mama Sifa's house was lit up. A weak yellow light flickered inside. Amina slowly moved closer, her heart pounding hard. The back window was slightly open. She carefully lifted herself to look inside, and then she saw it. In the middle of the room was a large blue plastic basin. The water inside looked dirty. Mama Sifa, wearing only a wrapper and no apron, was crouching down. She was washing her underwear. Slowly. She rubbed them for a long time, a very long time. Then she squeezed them over the basin. The water became darker. Amina felt her stomach twist. But that was not all. Mama Sifa stood up. She picked up the basin. She placed it beside a large bowl of prepared flour. She looked around her. silence. Then she poured the water, all of it, into the dough. Amina stepped back suddenly. Her foot snapped a dry twig. Crack! Mama Sifa froze, slowly, very slowly. Her face turned toward the window. Her eyes stared into the darkness. Amina pressed herself against the wall, barely breathing. A heavy silence filled the air. Then, a deep voice came from inside the house. I know someone is watching me. Amina's heart was beating so loudly she thought it could be heard. She did not move. After a few endless seconds, the light went out. Total darkness. Amina ran all the way home without looking back. That night she did not sleep. And for the first time, she wondered if the donuts were not just a recipe, but a ritual. Would you have kept watching or would you have run away? Tell us in the comments. The next morning, the village looked normal. The women were sweeping in front of their houses. The children were running around in their school uniforms. The men were talking near the big mango tree. And yet, for Amina, nothing felt normal anymore. She had seen it. She could not pretend anymore. As she walked past the stand, the smell of the donuts almost made her sick. Mama Sifa was already there. Same red scarf, same apron, same emotionless face. She was kneading the dough slowly, just like every morning. Her hands pressed deeply into the flour with strange concentration. When she looked up, her eyes met Amina's, a long stare, too long. Amina quickly looked away. But suddenly, a crazy idea crossed her mind. She needed to be sure. So even though disgust twisted her stomach, she walked closer. Give me 2 donuts. Her voice shook slightly. Mama Sifa stared at her for one more second, then handed her the small bag. Their fingers touched for only a brief moment, but Amina felt an icy chill run through her arm. She went to sit under a tree. She stared at the donuts. Golden, perfect, delicious looking, just like always. She took one bite, and then she felt something different, not in the sweet taste, not in the texture, but in the feeling. A strange warmth in her throat, a sudden heaviness. Her heart started beating faster. She put the donut down. Around her, everyone else was eating without thinking twice. But Amina noticed something strange. Some people chewed slowly, then became quiet, calmer, almost absent, as if something was wrapping around them, as if they were letting themselves go. Amina slowly lifted her eyes. Mama Sifa was watching. She was not smiling, but her eyes were shining. And for 1 second, Amina felt that the seller knew. She knew Amina had seen everything, and she was waiting. That same evening, Amina felt unusually tired. A dream suddenly woke her up in fear. In the dream, she was standing near a fire. A large round figure stood behind her. A voice whispered, "What you eat connects you to me." She woke up covered in sweat, and this time she was sure. It was not just a simple recipe. Something was inside those donuts, something invisible. In a village, secrets never stay hidden for long. They float around, they spread, they settle inside silence. 2 days after the night of the basin, another child became sick, then an adult. This time, it was Kanku, the motorcycle driver, the man who laughed at everything, the man who always said, "Mystical stories are only made to scare children." That morning, he had eaten 3 donuts at once. Later that afternoon, he felt a strange heaviness. Not pain, not fever, just unusual tiredness. And above all, a strange feeling, as if he could not stop thinking about someone. That evening, sitting alone in front of his house, he whispered, "Why do I keep thinking about her like this?" He did not understand. He had never been close to Mama Sifa, but her face kept returning to his mind, her eyes, her hands inside the dough. He shook his head. This is nonsense, but the feeling did not go away. Meanwhile, the women of the village started talking quietly near the river. Did you notice that the people who eat her donuts often become strange? They look like they're attached. My son refuses to eat donuts from other sellers now. He says hers are the only good ones. Mama Indala, the old wise woman, listened silently. She never spoke without thinking first. Then she said softly, "Some foods feed the body, but others feed something else. A heavy silence followed. Amina no longer knew what to do. Speak? To whom? And what if nobody believed her? The village depended on Mama Sifa. She had been there for 15 years. She had helped some people during difficult times. You could not accuse someone because of a strange thing seen at night. But that evening, as the sun disappeared behind the trees, Amina saw something even more disturbing. Mama Sifa was standing in front of her cold fire. She was not cooking. She stood completely still. Her eyes were closed. Her lips were moving as if she was whispering something, and in front of her, the blue basin, empty, clean, ready for the night. Days passed, and something started changing in the village. It was not something people could clearly see, but they could feel it. A heaviness in the air, more silence than before, empty, distant looks. The people who ate the donuts every day seemed different, more obedient, more attached to the stand. Some even took longer roads just to pass by Mama Sifa's house, even when they were not buying anything, as if they were being pulled there, as if they were connected to it. Kanku was starting to worry. Sometimes he woke up in the middle of the night with a strange feeling. He kept dreaming about a fire, always the same fire, and a voice whispering, "You always come back." Every morning he craved a donut. Even when he promised himself he would never eat one again, he tried to resist. 1 full day, 2 days. On the 3rd day, he suddenly found himself standing in front of the stand without understanding how he got there. Mama Sifa looked at him calmly. She did not offer him anything. She simply waited, and he said, "Give me 3." Even his own voice sounded strange to him. Meanwhile, Amina kept watching carefully. She noticed that Mama Sifa always touched the dough in a special way. She was not only mixing it, she pressed deeply into it, as if she was putting something invisible inside. And most of all, she stared intensely at every customer before serving them. A fixed stare, deep, almost piercing, as if the donut was not the only thing being exchanged. One evening, Amina made a decision. She could not stay a silent observer anymore. She went to see Mama Ndala. The old woman listened without interrupting her. Then she closed her eyes for a long moment. "What you are describing is not new." Amina shivered. Some people believe that by mixing a part of themselves into food, they create attachment. What kind of attachment? Mama Ndala opened her eyes. A bond, a subtle form of control, not magic like in fairy tales, but psychological. Amina stayed silent. "But be careful, my daughter. The danger is not only what she is doing." Then what is it? It is what people accept without thinking. That night, Amina had another dream. She saw herself walking toward the fire. Around her stood several villagers, silent, with empty eyes. And in the center, Mama Sifa. She was holding a basin, and she was smiling. For the first time, when Amina woke up, she understood something. Maybe it was not a sickness. Maybe it was not witchcraft. Maybe it was worse, an addiction, an invisible bond. And if nobody broke that bond, the whole village would eventually belong to her. Amina could not handle the doubts anymore. Seeing was no longer enough. Feeling was no longer enough. She needed proof, something real, something nobody could dismiss by simply saying, "You are imagining things too much." That night, she waited until it was completely dark. No moon, no wind. The village was covered in deep silence. She quietly slipped out of the house, just like the last time. But this time, she was prepared. She had taken a small, empty glass bottle, the one her father used long ago to keep medicine in. She wanted water from that basin. The light was on in Mama Sifa's house. The same yellow glow, the same large shadow moving slowly inside. Amina moved closer from the back of the house. Her heart was beating so hard she felt it against her ribs. She looked through the window. The scene was almost the same as before. The blue basin, the dirty water, the underwear being washed slowly for a long time. But this time, Amina noticed something else. Before pouring the water into the dough, Mama Sifa placed both hands inside the basin. She closed her eyes and clearly whispered, "May they always come back." An icy chill passed through Amina's body. She was no longer doubtful. Now she was certain. Later that night, when the light finally went out, Amina kept waiting for a long time. Then she walked around the house. The back door was not fully closed, only a small opening. She hesitated. It was dangerous, but she went inside. The room smelled of oil and flour. The basin was still there. A little dirty water remained at the bottom. Amina slowly stepped closer. Her hands were shaking. She opened the bottle and collected a little of the water. At that exact moment, a floorboard creaked behind her. She turned around. Nothing. Silence. But a strange feeling passed through her, as if she was not alone. She did not stay to understand. She ran outside immediately. The next morning, she went to see Mama Ndala with the bottle. The old woman looked at the water carefully for a long time. Then she softly said, "The frightening thing is not the water." Amina swallowed nervously. "It is the intention behind it. But can we prove it?" Mama Ndala slowly shook her head. "Things like this cannot be proven like a sickness. They reveal themselves." "How?" The old woman looked up at her. "By breaking the bond." That day, Amina understood something important. The real danger was not only what Mama Sifa was doing at night. The real danger was that the whole village kept buying, kept eating, kept coming back again and again. And meanwhile, behind her stand, Mama Sifa looked calmer than ever, almost confident, as if she knew nobody could stop her anymore. Amina was no longer sleeping properly. Every night the same dream, the fire, the basin, the empty eyes, and that sentence, "May they always come back." Now she understood. It was not only the water, it was a repeated intention, a ritual, a belief. And as long as people continued believing in it unconsciously, the bond stayed alive. The next morning she made a risky decision. She went to see Kanku. He had dark circles under his eyes. His stare looked empty. "Are you okay?" she asked. He hesitated. I don't know." She looked directly into his eyes. "Stop eating the donuts for 1 week." He laughed nervously. "Why?" "Just do it. Trust me." He wanted to refuse, but something in Amina's voice made him hesitate. "Okay, I'll try." The first day was difficult. The second day was worse. Kanku walked past the stand and slowed down. His eyes searched for Mama Sifa automatically. He could almost smell the donuts before even reaching the crossroads. He was sweating. He became angry for no reason. But he stayed strong. On the third day, he had a dream, different from the others. He saw himself standing in front of the fire, but this time he was stepping backward, and Mama Sifa's figure looked smaller, less powerful. Meanwhile, Amina noticed something else. Mama Sifa seemed irritated. She looked around more often, as if she was counting her customers, as if she was noticing who was missing. One morning, she stared for a long time at Kanku as he walked past without stopping. Her expression changed. A shadow crossed her face. On the 5th day, something strange happened. Kanku woke up feeling light. For the first time in weeks. No more dreams, no more heaviness, no more obsession. He walked past the stand. The smell was still there, but now it seemed ordinary to him. Just oil and sugar. Nothing hypnotic, nothing irresistible. He continued walking without turning back. Then Amina understood. The bond was not magical. It was psychological, repeated, strengthened, fed every day. And if other people stopped too, Mama Sifa's power would become weaker. But the problem was becoming bigger. Because that morning, Amina noticed something disturbing. Mama Sifa was no longer washing only her underwear. She had added something else to the basin, a lock of hair, and she was whispering louder than before. Amina felt real fear enter her heart. Mama Sifa had understood that people were resisting her, and she was not going to let the bond break so easily. The market was crowded that morning. Women shouted the prices of cassava. Children ran between the stalls. The smell of hot oil still floated in the air. But something felt different. A tension, an unusual silence around Mama Sifa's stand. She was there, standing straight, completely still. Her red scarf was tied tighter than usual. She barely spoke. She watched, and she counted. She had noticed it. Kanku no longer stopped by her stand. 2 other young men had stopped too. Her sales had slightly dropped, not by much, but enough for her to feel it. Amina arrived at the market with Mama Ndala beside her. The old woman walked slowly, leaning on her stick. People became silent when they saw them passing by. Amina felt her heart beating hard. This was the moment. Either she spoke now, or everything would continue. Subscribe to Nyota Stories TV. We publish 2 new stories every week. She stopped in front of the stand. Mama Sifa raised her eyes. Their eyes locked together for a long moment. Then Amina said clearly, "We need to talk in front of everyone." A whisper spread through the crowd. Mama Sifa did not answer. She waited. Then Amina spoke again. "Every night you wash your underwear in a basin and you pour that water into the dough." A brutal silence fell. Only the crackling fire could be heard. Shocked faces. Whispers everywhere. "What? That's impossible." Mama Sifa did not deny it. She did not scream. She simply placed her hands on the table. "You entered my house." It was not a question. It was a statement. Amina felt her throat tighten, but she continued. "You whisper words. You say, 'May they always come back.'" All eyes turned toward Mama Sifa. Her face stayed calm, too calm. Then she spoke in a deep, steady voice. "Yes," a shock passed through the crowd. "Yes, I mix my energy into my dough." Some women stepped back instinctively. "I am not hurting anyone." "Then why are people getting sick?" Amina asked. "Why the dreams?" Mama Sifa stared at the crowd. "Because you believe." A murmur spread. "You want something to control you. You are always searching for an outside force." She stood straighter. "I only used your weakness." A heavy silence fell again. She was not a hysterical witch. She was not crazy. She was a woman who truly believed in what she was doing. Mama Ndala stepped forward. "What you are doing is not a disease. It is not poison. It is manipulation." People's expressions changed. They were beginning to understand. The power was not mystical. It was psychological. Repetition, suggestion, ritual. Kanku stepped forward. "I stopped eating the donuts for 1 week. The dreams disappeared." Another man agreed. A woman whispered, "Me too." The crowd slowly started moving away. Mama Sifa watched them. Her calm expression began to crack. "You will come back." Her voice trembled slightly. "You always come back, but this time." Nobody stepped forward to buy anything. Nobody. The fire kept crackling. The oil kept boiling, but the circle had been broken. Mama Sifa remained standing long after the crowd had left. Her eyes looked different now, less confident, darker. She whispered softly, almost to herself. The day after the confrontation, the market was no longer the same. Mama Sifa's stand was set up like usual. The fire was burning. The oil was hot. The donuts were golden, but there was almost nobody there. A few children walked by, looked at the stand, then kept walking. The women whispered from far away. The men avoided her eyes, and for the first time in 15 years, her donuts remained unsold. Mama Sifa kept her head high, but inside her, something was shaking. She felt the emptiness, the silence, the absence. She was no longer counting customers. She was counting who was missing. Every person who walked past without stopping felt like a small cut, invisible but deep. At noon, she saw Kanku crossing the market square. Their eyes met. He did not slow down, but he did not look away either. He simply kept walking, as if she no longer had any effect on him, as if the bond had truly disappeared. And then something changed in Mama Sifa's eyes. Cold anger, fear. That night she did more than use the basin. Amina was watching again, but this time the scene was different. Mama Sifa was no longer whispering softly. She was speaking louder, faster. The basin contained water, hair, and a small piece of burned cloth. She poured the water violently into the dough. "You will come back. You need me." Her voice was trembling. It was no longer the voice of a confident woman. It was the voice of someone losing control. But the next day, nobody came, not one customer. The fire burned for nothing. The oil grew cold. The donuts became hard. The sun climbed high into the sky, and the stand stayed empty. That afternoon, Mama Dala simply said, "Power only exists as long as people believe in it." The villagers started buying from other sellers. The smell of the donuts no longer seemed special, just sugar and oil, nothing hypnotic. On the third day without customers, Mama Sifa did not come outside. The stand stayed closed. The house was silent. Amina walked past late that afternoon. The door was slightly open. The fire was out. The blue basin was lying upside down on the floor, empty. That evening, people learned that Mama Sifa had left the village before dawn, without warning anyone, without saying goodbye. She had simply disappeared, just like the day she arrived. But the strangest thing was not her departure. It was what happened afterward. For a few days, some villagers still felt something missing, a craving, a memory of the taste, like a calling. But this time, they resisted, and little by little, the bond disappeared completely. Like this video if you also believe that the greatest power is what people choose to believe. And yet, some nights, when the wind blows from the place where the stand once stood, a light smell of donuts still floats in the air. And some people swear they can hear a whisper, "You will always come back." 5 years passed. The village of Mbankana had changed. A new market had been built. New sellers had arrived. The sick children had grown up. Life had returned to normal. But nobody truly forgot the story of Mama Sifa. Sometimes people still talked about her at night around the fire. They would say, "She was strange. She manipulated people." Thank God Amina spoke up. As for Amina, she was no longer the hesitant 17-year-old girl she once was. She was now studying in the city, psychology, and it was not a coincidence. That story had planted a seed inside her, a question. How could a simple donut seller create such a strong attachment? Was it really mystical, or was it something else? One day during class, her professor spoke about mental suggestion, about conditioning, about repetition connected to emotion. He explained, if you connect a product to a constant feeling, a ritual, a strong presence, the brain creates a bond, a soft addiction. Amina felt her heart tighten. The fire, the smell, the fixed stare, the repeated sentence. May they always come back. Maybe it was not witchcraft after all. Maybe it was a technique, unconscious perhaps, but powerful. Meanwhile, in another village, many kilometers away, a new seller had just arrived. She said her name was Mama Safi. She wore a red scarf. She was round, silent, and her donuts had a very special taste. At night, behind her small clay house, a blue basin stood beside a fire, and a soft voice whispered, "May they always come back." But this time, someone was already watching her, a young girl, curious, suspicious, because stories never truly disappear. They simply move to another place. And you, would you have dared to investigate like Amina? And the real truth, it was not the water, it was not the underwear, it was not even the basin. The real truth was that Mama Sifa's power came from people's needs. The need to feel attracted, the need to believe that something special exists, the need to feel connected, and as long as that need exists, there will always be someone ready to exploit it. Subscribe to Nyota Stories TV so you don't miss the next mysterious stories. We upload 2 new stories every week, and some are even darker than this one.